Hello, hello, hello. Happy Tuesday. How are you guys doing today? Yo, Ruby Mia, thanks for the follow. Welcome to the stream. Doing? Okay, give me a few minutes, be right back. And get my coffee. Okay, let's see. What we're looking at. Move this one here. Go on YouTube. Delete 824. Yeah. Add window capture, right? Capture. Okay. Form. Hit the screen. Go. There we go. Let's see. What do we have? We have from Talkative Tribe. We have looking at five spicy league starters for Path of Exile. Let me pause the music.
However, we've touched the big patch note and spicy Path of Exile starter builds. All are equally represented at League start, especially for PoE 3.24, Necropolis League. However, we've touched the big patch notes, peered at the dripping teasers, totally stayed out of the drama, and only recounted some safer League start options so far. That must mean, yeah, you guessed it, this is the Spicy League Starters video. Today, I'm showcasing 5. Volcanic Fissure of Snaking Juggernaut, Connor Converse's Molten Strike of the Zenith Battle Mage's Cry Juggernaut, Dual Strike of Ambidexterity Slayer, Local Hole's Lightning Strike Raider, and Snoobay's Explosive Concoction of Destruction Pathfinder. Yeah, that's right. 3 super melee builds, 1 slam build, and 1 ranged build that relies on chucking potions directly at your foes' faces. Also, here's a spoiler. One of these is my starter. If you want a best league starters list, check out my other video of 5 criminally strong starters or one of the numerous other 5 best starter videos out there. If you are on the search for something unique, fun, interesting, potentially difficult, and yes, spicy, continue on. These ideas are purely to share and encourage you to go wild. We'll do a quick overview of each build with some highlights and keep it brief. Consider your time not wasted. Talamoana, fellow exiles, I am Try. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what you see and hear. Now, let's talk some Path of Exile 1. We're starting with the hottest of these 5 builds, the resident slammer on the list, Volcanic Fissure of Snaking Juggernaut. Believe it or not, that's not the wordiest or even second wordiest build on the list. It's also not my starter right now, although it just might win out by launch. Volcanic Fissure is a wild skill. You slam your weapon onto the ground and a huge fissure opens up, damaging enemies all around. When you use its transfigured gem, Volcanic Fissure of Snaking, it turns into a screen-wide, enemy-tracking mess of fiery goodness, splattering enemies all across the map and making your PC shake, quite literally. The skill's damage carries hard, but stacking attack speed here is vital for a feel-good character. Additionally, while its clear is incredible, its single target damage before you max out lacks a bit. You'll definitely need some skill to down pinnacles with this as a starter. While Slayer is an okay option, I'm a fan of being a beefy boy and going Juggernaut. It helps with defenses, attack speed, and ensuring I am as large as possible when I press Berserk. The build up here is rather self-explanatory as a starter, but for scaling, you probably want to go forward as a strength stacker with Brutus's lead sprinkler. I've seen quite a bit of discussion on this build, with lots of people showcasing maxed out versions of it. What you're seeing in the background is a poor geared League Start simulation sampled by one of my favorite build makers around, Captain Lance 9. Doesn't it still look absolutely wicked and make you want to go snake around some enemies? If I haven't convinced you yet, well, I guess it's time to move on to yet another fiery starter. Yeah, that's right, it's another Juggernaut build, Exiles. This one specifically by Connor Converse, a nice but genius build maker who is totally not baiting us with this sensible Molten Strike of the Zenith Battle Mage's Cry Juggernaut. That was a mouthful. Molten Strike has been nerfed for years on end, totally for the meme on GGG's end. However, with returning projectiles, it did make a bit of a comeback, and now with the transfigured gem, some smart people have learned how to make the skill work. Yeah, Connor is one of those people. This keeps us with the Juggernaut and two-handers, allowing us to be super speedy with excellent clear and single target DPS using the projectiles of Molten Strike. Additionally, utilizing Battle Mage's Cry, it allows our boost to spell damage to apply to our Molten Strike, which when stacked with the Transfigured Gem's Zenith Strike means we get some huge chunks of damage done to our enemies. Here's a warning, the playstyle is a bit jank, complete with weapon swaps, the need to be clever about certain exerted attacks, and relying on the oh-so-beloved projectiles of Molten Strike. The strike skill itself, too, looks a bit broken when swinging a two-handed sword, but that's not a tremendous problem. Again, Connor breaks down the build very well in a single take in the link to this build in the description. Go check it out. Okay, moving away from the meaty Marauder and to Piety's favorite arse and all of Rayclast, let's talk a dual strike of ambidexterity Slayer starter. Yeah, this is a wild one and probably the most melee of the melee builds on this list, but I've been searching around and hearing peeps about this one. It looks fun, and it's another transfigured gem. Like Cleave of Rage, it makes you wield two different weapon types. Unlike Cleave of Rage, you can choose which ones they are. The damage potential here is insane, as is the sustain as a Slayer with Overleech. Your clear here isn't as bomber as something like Volcanic Fissure, but your single target is easily insane, even at League start. With this league being a league likely focused around bossing and downing those brand new T17 maps, this might be a legitimate contender. In particular, I caught the VOD of a smaller channel, Stockfish, simulating a league start with this skill and getting 2 Void Stones in around 7 hours. It's quite respectable, especially for a melee skill. If you're interested in this, definitely check out Stockfish's channel and the VOD linked below. While I have also seen some bleed variants popping around out there, I'd not do that. Bleed is not in a great place, especially for melee attack builds. Stick to the flat damage attempts at this. Lots of people choose to use Paradoxica and Brightbeak with this, including Stockfish. Especially with lots of Katarina farmers this league, this should be a super cheap build-up. It is melee though, and it could be bait. Definitely not like this next build. Here we are with inclusion number 4. We are at my likely starter for Path of Exile 3.24 Necropolis. It's Localhol's Lightning Strike Raider, a build with a rundown and warning so clear you'd need to listen to about 15 seconds of the video, mute the video, and directly go to the comments and rage post to not hear it. This build goes back to one of the most broken skills of the mid 3.0 era, Lightning Strike. The skill revolves around scaling it with Trinity support, dealing tons of elemental damage and blasting the screen with numerous lightning-looking projectiles. While the clear is absolutely stellar and simple, the bossing requires quite a bit more setup. It's a melee build, so we'll want totems, and Lightning Strike has a Val version, which we'll definitely want to drop a lightning ball that attacks our Lightning Strike down for. The setup isn't as bad as some other melee builds, but it's definitely not a one-button build during Pinnacle encounters. There are also other popular variations of this skill and build that still work using the Trickster and Champion ascendancies, but this particular Raider breakdown by Localhaul is especially juicy, quick, and powerful. While it's not for beginners, it's definitely a distinctly strong League starter option. While it's definitely not for beginners, it's still a distinctly strong League starter option. Exiles, it's the last build on the list and the spice factor is out of this world. May I introduce Snoobay85's explosive concoction of destruction Pathfinder, the only ranged build on this set of starters. It's quite the bomb. With 6 projectiles without something like Dying Sun, and the incredible power built behind the Pathfinder and its flask boosts, you're able to zoom through maps, annihilate monsters as soon as they appear on your screen, and it's all with real minimal investment. Your defenses, though, they're a bit scuffed. Beware. The build-up for this requires a few big uniques, especially to make explosive concoction as a skill function in the mid-endgame, so you might be leveling with a different skill entirely, like Toxic Rain and Poisonous Concoction, before swapping over to Explosive Concoction entirely. But it's a relatively easy transition, especially for the power boost involved. Snoobay85's guide all the way back to 3.22 works well for this, as well as his updated Transfigured Gem addendum in 3.23.
I don't think,
as with all the other builds on this list, it's super flashy, risky, and of course, as spicy as many of the takes found on the PoE Builds subreddit. Luckily, Snoobay85 actually made an updated POB for it for 3.24 too, which can be found in the second link attached to this build in the description. League starter showcases. Let me know, and I'll see you in the Necropolis.
Yeah, I don't know about
Seriously,
this.
I'm going to stream it. Go check me out on the Purple streaming website.
Let's see. Asmodeus. This is 1 hour.
Hi guys, Asmo here, and today I have for you a tier list for the 324 Necropolis League. This is going to be, full disclaimer, my personal subjective tier list. I'm gonna give you my take on all of these starter builds that I've picked here. This is not all of the builds, so that's another disclaimer. There's not gonna be every single skill, but this is the most popular League starters. I basically looked at different League starter lists. I looked at different League starter videos. I looked at different content creators that I know I can trust in terms of their opinions. And I took this all with a grain of salt, filter it through my own opinions and thoughts. And I'm gonna try to give you like a summary for each build, maybe what it's good at, maybe what are the drawbacks of playing it, so that I can help you figure out what will be your next League starter according to your playstyle and your preferences, and you can, again, gonna be like amazing. Then we have C tier, which is going to be either weak build or it has some issues. Certain builds have like very specific issues that make it, you might be confused when I put them here. Arc, I think, it doesn't just like out of the gate like blow everything up, right? So it's not a great league builds next league. There are going to be some very powerful ones. And if you were playing an Ignite version, you could do something like, for example, get an early Explode chest, which is cheaper than you would think. It's actually way cheaper than you would think. You get some Harvest Essence than you would think. You, for example, put it here, but Arma Brand by itself is just such a comfortable, strong skill. Also has a transfigured version. If you want to play Ignite, there is a version that hits only once, right? And if you were playing an Ignite version, you could do something like, for example, get an early Explode by its, put it here, because this is going to be an S tier. And there are so many different ways you can leverage and transition from it, right? So you could transition into Arma Brand Recall, right? Which I might as well already put it here. Because this is going to be an S tier League starter probably. I might as well put it here, but Arma Brand, than you would think, you get some, like, for example, Cremation for single target, position into the Recaller or whatever you want, right? So definitely I would put it as a very, very solid League starter, like something that you'll really have a good time with if you start with and build once you set it up properly. Very strong. Then we have Artillery Ballista. So typically when you increasing its single target damage, that is that if you're using Pathfinder,
Artillery Ballista,
it's not the greatest ascendancy for that, because you do get Poison Prolif, but your poison it's an S tier, right? Most people don't play in a group. I would put it in an A tier. Perfect, right? It's not perfect. I wouldn't skill still, right? Probably the best my skill still. Relatively weak. It's going to be slower than Arma Brand, right? It's going to be slow because it's just better than everything else. Then we have what? Really, really crazy that this thing didn't get nerfed, but it is what it is. XD tier exists solely for it's even stronger because we have new Spectres that have this build of the league. Very weird that it didn't get nerfed, like last core. Good, clear, strongest build this league. Definitely recommend checking that out. Then put it in like an A tier or something like that. Then we have XDD tier. So Detonate Dead. There are many different options. I think Nick, I'm Exile, made a video about different versions of DD, comparing all of them. So if you want to play the strongest build this league, definitely recommend checking that out.
Yeah, it's gonna be the
Ventura also put out a
probably,
video about leveling. I think Inquisitor Custom Print DD, which I think is the single strongest build in this league, especially for softcore. Good, clear, very quick build, lots of damage,
is gonna be
cheap,
probably
like low budget, right? And you can set it up to do like, 20-30 million DPS on very cheap, and it's very, very strong. So definitely the strongest build of the league. Very weird that it didn't get nerfed. Like last league, people were already like weirded out why it didn't get nerfed, and now it's even stronger because we have new Spectres that have more life from the T17 maps, and they're gonna make DD even stronger. What? Really, really crazy that this thing didn't get nerfed, but it is what it is. XDD tier exists solely for this skill because it's just better than everything else. Then we have Divine Ire. So Divine Ire, I would put in. Would I put it in C or would I put it? I'm not a build for it. Like Toxic Rain Ballet together because they're basically the same build. You have where you can get a lot of damage early on, you can get a lot of speed early on, and you can basically just do every type of content that you want, right? This is gonna be similar. I'm gonna put Ice Trap in the same category. I'm just gonna put them both together because they're basically the same build. You have one version of a trap that has better clear, and then for Shrapnel Ballista, it's probably still the same version for single target, and for Ice Trap is the other version of the skill for single target probably, unless you get enough AoE for overlaps. So both of these skills have, and then how early you get huge amount of single target damage early, but it's good enough to like clear everything you need. So definitely a very strong league starter. If you haven't seen it, basically the same thing. I would put it here together with really good builds. That this is one of the which again, A tier is good skills. You're gonna have a good time using, and I would actually put it. I would definitely put this one as one that I recommend. Now we have Lightning Conduit. So Lightning Conduit is S tier. Lightning Conduit is amazing, and I would actually put it with Stormbrand because I think you should probably play those two together, right? So this is if I was gonna start something for fun, just to like have fun and like play whatever I think is fun early, good for Sanctums early, good league start, like Ignite Dissipation was bugged, or the Runebinder with it was bugged. Penance Brand of Dissipation was still the strongest skill. So last league, when Penance Brand of Dissipation was bugged, or the Runebinder with it was bugged, and it had 50% less damage, it was still the strongest skill in the game.
Yeah, it was really
and now
strong,
it's going to have 65% less damage. So in actuality, if we are comparing it to the first prefix version of the Penance Brand, it's like a 20 to 30% nerf. 20 to 30% nerf, like even like a 30% nerf when you're comparing it to the prefix version is still incredibly strong. It's still a very strong skill. If you want to know how to play this build at a league start, and you want to be, softcore, you're a softcore player, you don't care about dying, so you're a cast on death portal enjoyer. If you're into just maximizing damage and doing huge deeps with this and just destroying everything, just destroying Sanctums, for example, and things like that early, then you can follow Zboob, for example, on Twitch. He has a nice guide for it, and this is going to be still a very strong build. If you want clear, use Impulsa or play for something like Elementalist or scale AoE some other way. Like you can use like Adorned with Jewels corrupted with AoE. You can use so many different things to scale AoE to a huge amount. That this is going to be something still really strong, right? Because you can get Impulsa early, you can have a good clear. It's brands, right? Like brands, people say this has bad clear, but that was honestly not my experience. I was playing Trickster, the clear was completely fine. Like if you have enough damage, your clear is gonna be fine, right? If you have enough cast speed, your clear is gonna be fine because you're gonna get the extra AoE, right? So you're gonna be able to clear just fine with this skill. Like I'll definitely not be worried about clearing with it, as long as you do enough damage, and this skill does enough damage, right? So still very strong starter, I would say. You can start with the other brands. You can start with like Armageddon brand while leveling, and then swap to this when you can afford to buy it. Still very, very strong skill. Then we have Puncture. So that's going to represent a bleed bow only early on gear. Right? Poison's Concoction. Poison's Concoction, you have to hit the freaking monster, and you do want the overlaps as well. And then you're playing a different build, right? You're playing the Zoo build or whatever. So Righteous. That's why I wouldn't put it in an S tier, but it is on tier. I'll do later in the league. I don't think much more explanation is needed there. And then we got Shockwave Totem. So Shockwave, where you're fighting bosses, right? Excellent for bossing. Like you, then it can be good build to be on a pretty good stuff. Some of these other things, with example, right? That if like Uber Ether fragments or whatever. Now that's not going to be the case. Now to get to regular Ether, that's what's going to happen. But the Uber Ether fragments is going to come from T17 maps. Much fewer people will be doing T16 maps and clear all of the like Toxic Green scales with attack speed. Teams have extra mods players because they just want to play Tornado Shot and they don't give a shit and they're just going to do whatever. So definitely I like, not a league starter, right? Because it's just single target damage is got penalized by the removal of extra projectiles, so it makes it less consistent to hit the projectiles if you have fewer of them, because of secondary projectiles being removed, so you're not going to hit with all of them as consistently. You just have lower chance, and then the attack speed penalty and mana penalty and the removal of minus mana is going to be just so much more annoying to get. This just monsters blocking. Like right?
What are the other ones?
Other get two. If you have a better annoying. There are other alternatives. Excellent. Strike melee physical isn't starter, but and you end up being limited by your Flame Blast with Korean names that have ungodly amounts of currency immediately at the league start, and they started by playing a Flicker. Something's fishy going on there, huh? Something fishy is going there. But yeah, Flicker Strike is going to be in the MasterCard tier. Kind of a meme. Don't recommend starting it unless you are like, if you're Flicker Strike top 5 and are basically the same thing. This is kind of similar. Frost Blades are basically the same thing. This doesn't scale that very well at the beginning. People play it as a raider. Both of these ascendancies people play as a raider, which with Flicker makes sense. With this, kind of makes sense. But they're okay early on. You can clear damage nerf on the Sentinel of Radiant. It's gonna be okay, but it's not gonna be anywhere near as good as before. This is what I wanted to start. I think it was here. But it lost 50% damage. It got a 50% damage nerf on the Sentinel of Radiance or whatever it's called, and a 40% damage nerf on the SRS itself. So it is what it is. We got hit with the nerf butt, and now I'm just going to be starting with some Necromancer version. I'm probably... I have some interesting...
Okay. Let's see. Something else. I mean, wow! So far, it's not looking very good. I mean, I have kind of chosen one so far. Probably my first after watching these two videos. I think I'm gonna... Yo, Black Mamba. Thank you for the follow. What's up, man? Welcome to the channel. Happy Thursday. How you doing? Probably detonate that so far. Let's see. Our fellow Italian. Crouching Tuna. Let's see.
On a league start where you have a lower budget, Artillery Ballista does pull
Artillery
through as being
Ballista.
the higher damage variant, but at the expense of you, of course, having to put down your totems. Now these totems, you know, you place them down pretty fast, so to me, it's not really much of an issue, but you know that the alternative is out there if you wish to use it, but I will be covering the variant where we are using the totems. So let's talk about a lightning arrow and let's do a little showcase. I've basically just put in a little map here with, you know, a Dune Legion with a Rusted Legion scare, which essentially is basically like, this is the build's home. Now, you might see a little bit
I think I played Artillery Ballista.
But I've made sure
It was pretty good. I don't know, 2 leagues ago or something?
So yeah, Lightning Arrow is a build that is fantastic.
Lightning Arrow also.
Like, it's one of the best map clearers in the game.
I like it.
And,
But
yeah, it's
starter,
really
I
good
don't
for
know.
league start as well, because you can basically pick up items off of the floor and be on your merry way. Essentially, you're gonna be, you know, picking up anything
go
off the floor and putting it
LA,
onto your character. So as long as you have a good
end
item
game.
filter, you're
mean,
basically
if
good
I
to
farm
go.
Legion
It's
or
also
something.
one of the best builds for SSF. You know, many of the SSF blasters have been using Lightning Arrow as their choice because, yeah, if you can efficiently farm maps in early league and farm them fast on a character like this that doesn't require all that much gear, you're going to just be at a massive advantage over, you know, builds that
Plus
otherwise
defenses
would
are
need
kinda
more
meh.
care into its itemization, and especially, you know, it's one of the builds that can push into higher tier maps, and higher tier maps are the place where you're going to be getting most loot. So I really like this build for that matter, because you can just basically take Lightning Arrow from the early acts and you just play Lightning Arrow all the way into endgame, and it's a fast build, it's a fun build. Of course, fun being subjective, but yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it's something that I've played for thousands and thousands of hours. I will not be league starting this build this league, but I gotta tell you guys, like, for the many league starts that I've had with this build, I've really enjoyed it, and it is by far one of the best farmers, you know, for, you know, Russian.
Yeah, I will never
Legion.
I don't
Also altar
usually
farming
league
and all
start
that kind of good stuff
Lightning
that you
Arrow.
expect to do on league start. It has pretty good single target damage. However, it's like, it's not the craziest single target damage.
When I go
by any
league
means,
starter, I
but it
usually
does have pretty good damage, as you can see there.
do it when
And
I
it also has
have
overall like,
some
okay
decent amount of
survivability.
currency
It's definitely on the lower side.
and I
But
want to
since we are
farm like
pumping
end
as
game
much
maps.
evasion
I want to be
rating
fast
into
as
our build
fuck.
possible, you're gonna be
I want to farm
avoiding
Legion.
damage
And
a
I'm
lot
gonna
of the
make a
time,
second
especially
character
if
or
you
a
put
third
care
or
into it, you
whatever.
can get
I'm
easily
gonna
up
make
to 95%
Lightning
evasion.
Arrow.
And thanks to that, as well as spell
But
suppression,
there
you know,
are
you should be
plenty of
mitigating
people that's starting
most
Lightning Arrow.
of the deaths that you would usually come across, you know, through the fact that you're, you know, freezing, avoiding, as well as suppressing. So overall, it's a nice package for softcore. I do not, as well as, you know, providing you with a little bit of advice for crafting, as
Yeah,
and
defense
some
is pretty
tips and
low.
tricks, of course. But this is also a great way for me to sort
High-end
of
game
present
is
the build
expensive,
to you
I know.
guys, because we have developed this really nice tool that has a way to sort of show you guys all the information that you need to know. And yeah, go about it. I go on a 4-link all the way to either Exarch. Show you guys that you will be able to use this filter.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
with evasion pieces. Because
do
evasion pieces
Lightning
are
Arrow.
gonna be making sure that our
End
you know,
game.
attacks are not killing us.
Yeah, that's cool that
We're essentially like avoiding
Tuna
damage where possible.
made a Lightning Arrow start quite big start. Archmage, Ball, Lightning, Hierophant. Alsteron.
Test this really out. I can put
Usually
on the
does,
Archmage support.
good-
We talked about
good
that in a
builds.
second, but it just works completely different. So while I'm gonna show you gameplay, just so you know, it could suck. It could potentially suck, and I'm going to go in with that promise that I'm not going to reroll anything else one day before. I'm not gonna reroll day one. I'm going to stick through with that. That's
Okay.
all I can guarantee. My numbers do look good though, so I just wanted to throw out that real quickly. Now, when it comes to videos, this is going to
Don't
be
cross
the
your
main
word.
build guide video. I'll also push out a leveling guide and a end game guide where we're going to talk about a little bit more on the campaign, and then also what do you do after like 10 plus divines. But in general, as always,
Left click.
every
XD.
link will be down in the description, including the max roll guide once it's out if you want to follow along there. Now, in terms of gameplay, the only problem I have is that current Archmage doesn't do what it's supposed to do, so I cannot throw in on this build because it would consume like 700 or 800 mana or something if I actually wanted to do damage. So all I'm left with is show you this right here, where I'm going to, with like less than a third of the damage you should have at this point, I'm just going to, I don't know, show you up here 14 maps or something. If you think I'm bullshitting you, that's fine as well. Just move on. But all I can show you is this. This is going to be the playstyle. So at the end, I actually decided for
though.
Frostblink of Wintry Blast
We
instead
don't
of
have any
Lightning Ward,
more
simply
left
because
click.
I like the movement more. That is basically it. You have to put it on tech without moving. It always travels the same distance, so it doesn't matter where I put my cursor. On Lightning Warp, I actually have to put it on the side every single time. And I'm just going to quickly show you how this actually plays. So right here you can see that we have the default, right? This is the default MTX. I'll show you the other ones as well. Now, without Archmage, whenever my Arcane Cloak is not up, I don't do much damage, right? Which is a big problem that will get solved this league. But as you can see right here, doing pretty fine. Now, we can also get hit by something real quick a little bit. Let's get hit a few times. Maybe here. Something can hit us. And then you can see the ES recovery. It's just going up constantly and constantly. We're going to talk about that a little bit later as well, because I'm actually going to be using instant leech. We can even tank some of these balls. It doesn't really matter. And as you can see, our mana is mostly unaffected, and that is because I have such good energy shield recovery, which kind of pulls me apart from some of the other POBs that I've seen, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Now, once we finish this, I can show you the boss, but the boss is going to be pretty mediocre with this kind of damage, I'm assuming. Just go in real quick. As you can see right here, the ball lightning actually has way more of a targeting range than you might think. You can see those zaps. Oh, at least he's taking damage. Okay, so that's fine. So one thing you want to do is you want to stay away from the boss because it's important. I'm going to talk about that later. But yeah, I just wanted to show you how this build actually plays. The EO uptime is also quite good. I usually don't do MTX showcases, but Ball Lightning looks so like meek, and like obviously the AoE is way bigger than it looks like. But I just want to show you what you can do if you're willing to shill for GGG and just pay the monies, right? I tried both of these, so you don't have to if you don't want them. Automaton is my second favorite. It's basically just this. It looks really cool when it zaps multiple enemies. But the coolest one by far for me is the Celestial one, as always. It actually looks a little bit more chunky. All right, so most importantly, and the biggest mistakes that people are making with mana builds comes from its defense. For the uninitiated, you might be looking at my life, my energy shield, and my mana, and you might be thinking, oh, that's a very tanky character. You can probably face tank Ubers. Not really. In fact, I would very much compare it with a right side build that has spell suppression, evasion, and a little bit of physical taken as on league start, maybe a little bit nicer.
Probably you can sacrifice some damage
really
and gain and build some defense.
However, what I want to say here is that do not overestimate this. You're still a ranged build, and you still have to play like everybody else. Just because these numbers look big doesn't mean you're an uber tank, and that is mostly because of your pathing on the tree. You don't really have access to spell suppression. You could path here, get lucky spell suppression, get reflexes, get evasion gear.
As we can see,
you could do all that, but then you would also have to cut Unwavering Stance, which
but probably with more investment
in a second as well.
Sacrificing maybe a bit of damage.
More possible, but still, mana builds are quite stretched thin. So what I'm trying to say here, still nice, right? Especially with Arcane Cloak up, with Sigil of Power up, big number go up, but you have to support that with other things, especially since you don't have Grace, you don't have Evasion. You have to get the recovery because you're going to get hit a lot. But let's first talk about our main defensive mechanism, which is going to be Mind Over Matter and Divine Guidance. This is just one part of your defense. A lot of people just slap it on and think that's enough. No. We need recovery, stun immunity, all of that. But first up, Divine Guidance, 10% of damage is taken from mana before life. This stacks additively with Mind Over Matter for 50%. This means that whenever you take damage from your life, half of that will actually apply to your mana. This does, however, not go for your energy shield, and a lot of people think that is a downside. The hard part about mana stackers is the mana recovery, which doesn't really come up at all if you have a lot of energy shield because it barely ever gets touched. The problematic thing here is, though, that sure, energy shield protects your mana from getting drained constantly, but that only reliably works if you actually have the recovery on your energy shield. What you will see on a
Yeah,
lot of league starters that I've seen out there that don't have instant leech, that don't make this leap over there and sacrifice 8 points for instant leech, is they're going to be constantly on 0 to like 20% energy shield. And then all of this max hit will completely go away. To show you what that means, I can basically put my energy shield to 0 with agnostic. I would go from 58k to 45k, or if I turn my sigil of power and my arcane cloak off, I would only be at half of my effective hit pool. And this is one of the reasons I chose ball lightning. It's because with instant leech, you're gonna have a lot of instant leech procs. And if you look at my recovery right here, 3,100, 3,500 per second, if I unallocate this, you can see what happens. And that is if you only had a little bit of leech and you thought that would be reliable. So yes, you will need leech for both your energy shield and your life. Whenever it gets through to life, you want to be back up immediately again. There's some tech for that. We're going to talk about that in the item section as well. As important as what we just talked about is immunity to stun. The amount of people I've seen who are just running Soul of the Brine King and maybe the new mastery here that gives you a little bit stun threshold. From testing against harder enemies, I can tell you right now, you're going to get absolutely annihilated if you're not actually stun immune. I want to make this clear here, and the pathing down here sounds kind of sketchy, but we're going to battle rouse anyways, so all I had to do is respec these. Sure.
Isn't it better to, can you not do the tech on this build with the stun thing? Is you put up here, and with the jewel, you get the 2 jewels. And the amulet, maybe? So it can basically be kinda immortal, keeping your HP up.
We're losing 16% mana, but the 20 strength also makes gearing a lot easier. And then we have a 3-point jewel as well. And then we're just basically spending 2 points. Unwavering stance is huge. We don't have access to evasion anyways, basically free. And the last step here is that chaos resistance is very important. This is not anything new. That is true for all builds, but especially for a build that gets its mana drained whenever life takes a hit, and chaos damage goes for energy shield. So you want to be chaos res capped a little bit earlier than some of the other builds. A huge help here is this mastery right here. If you're not taking this mastery, I don't know what the hell you're doing. This has been an absolute savior. I didn't have it before. I didn't really know how it would work, but after testing it, I mean, it's just an absolute blessing. You have to take it, and those things will make red maps a ton easier. As for mana cost, I guess all I can do really quickly is put in Archmage support. It doesn't really work like that right now, but this would be where it's at. 55 mana to 80 mana is roundabout what you're going to be casting. So one thing I want to make people aware is that mana recovery is not as big of a deal as it used to be with this much energy shield to protect it, and all you're really doing is you're consuming it with Arcane Cloak, and you're sometimes gonna get hit through it, and when that happens, sure, but then you also have to realize that you have like 3.8k life but 8k mana, so only
you can use Arcane Cloak on
so it's not.
It doesn't matter if it's on left click or not.
I need more than 800 to
Just gonna need to
1,000
press
mana
it
region. It's obviously still going to be more comfy, but most of the harsher mana region you will need once you go something like Indigon, which we're not going to talk about in this video. Now, what made Archmage builds more viable this league is mostly flat out damage increase, but on top of that, the cost can now be reduced and it doesn't influence your damage. So Archmage used to read that you get 75% of your cost as extra damage, so you had to actually scale. Now, first thing I want to point out here is it looks really measly, but you have to understand that the AoE of a ball lightning is actually a lot bigger. If we go into POV right here and we go to ball lightning, what you will see here is that this is your actual radius. If we convert that to in-game, if I have a ball lightning here, it would be like this, sort of, right? And you will see that while playing. You don't need additional projectiles. I tried it with pinpoint. I didn't love it. It wasn't really necessary. It is quite good AoE for what it is. Now, it has some interesting interactions with projectile speed. I guess to start out with, ball lightning is hard capped at hitting a single target 13 times. It cannot hit more often, and there is an interval of 150 milliseconds, so you can't just throw it on and it immediately pops all the 13 hits. It has a little bit of a delay. But while flying through an enemy, you want to apply those. Now, how do you do that? Well, in order for this ball lightning to hit as often as possible while flying through the enemy, there's really only 2 options. First, you can increase the AoE of your ball lightning, which actually increases your clear speed as well. or you can slower your ball lightning, which to some extent we do with slower proj support. It's actually worth it. But everything else, in my opinion, and this is just like, I mean, whatever, right? There's actually people who go adjacent animosity, they even go like less projectile speed. That's fair enough. I just don't think like it's worth it to go from 11 to 13 projectiles that badly to completely screw up your clear. So yeah, do whatever you must, but not for me. I would not recommend it going like that. Slower proj is more than enough, and it also does calculate. So if you go ball lightning 1 bolt, right, that is a single tick. All bolts in range basically just means that depending on how often you hit, because POB actually does that for you, reduced effect of chill on you.
Yeah, I'm not
which
probably gonna
with the 50%
go this one.
reduced
Don't like this skill.
mana
I don't
is
think I
extra
ever played
maximum energy
it.
shield, which comes out
It
to
doesn't look
2 to 3k
appealing
on this
to me.
version of the POB. On the body armor, you don't want to have it because you have the mastery for 15%
Items, jump
increase
setup,
maximum life here.
passive 3,
But
leveling.
everywhere else, you want your
Hot
items to
curse
kind of look like.
version.
In here, I think Kitava's first basically makes it so that whenever you cast a skill that costs 100
This
or more
endgame.
mana,
Later on.
you will cast everything that's in
8
there.
mil.
And you can basically do it like a lot of bow builds do it with quad curse with Azanov's mark. You can do the same
Yeah,
thing
defenses
here.
are
All you
kinda
need is anathema
low, though.
and 4 maximum power charges.
I mean, that's
I think
cool.
that could get expensive. And
Probably won't go this one. Touching Tuna, another video. Sanguinate Miner, League
Yo,
Start
what up,
Guide.
guys? It's Tuna, and I think it's
I don't
about
think I
time
ever
show you
played
guys the
Exsanguinate.
build that I'm gonna be league starting
Exsanguinate. Looks
in
interesting.
Metropolis League, and it's something that some of you guys probably already seen because I league started the last league, and I really enjoyed the build, and I also didn't really see it to completion. So this league I sort of wanted to do it justice, and that's the Exsanguinate Miner. So this is a build that was developed by a friend of mine, Captain Garbage, and it's something that I really enjoyed for many reasons. And I'll explain some of the mechanics here to you guys. And the main sort of selling point is that the map clear is just completely busted. It's just insane. You might ask yourself, you know, a miner in the league where they removed left click detonate, but in the coming league we're going to be getting mines that are detonated when you're walking, right, which is a mastery that we'll be able to allocate as soon as we enter here, you know, when we re-roll into mines. So we'll grab blast wave and we'll get that, and later on we'll be able to spec it here. So that's no problem at all. This character is just sort of something that I've built, and it's not the final gear by any means, and things are sort of, you know, not min-maxed, and I just wanted to show you guys kind of like the mechanics, how it works, what it looks like when it's mapping, and in general why I
played
think it's insane, and why I think it's
Miner
best
last league. I had
starters
to build
for, you know, softcore blasters especially, and in general for anybody that wants to go
Hex
fast
Blast.
and clear maps really well. So yeah, I'll just put in a strand map right now, you know, something like this to showcase what it looks like in these maps. And
Not the
I'll
most
put a link to this character
enjoyable.
as well, as I bet some of you guys are probably interested.
But it's good for
how it clears
bossing.
legions. Now, this build, we really want to focus on getting as much attack speed as possible. We're using an essence here for 16% more attack speed and also getting % increased attack speed where possible. On top of that, we want to get attack speed also here through these nodes like Force Shaper, for example, but also a little bit through our jewels. So you were getting like increased attack speed while holding a shield and all of that kind of stuff, you know, wherever possible. So attack speed is, yeah, just generally really good. Additionally, of course, we also have access to attack speed as well as onslaught here, so that's even more. And because we're shield charging, what that ends up looking like is, you know, it goes pretty fast. So just a quick little map showcase to show you guys what it's like and how it clears, and as you can see, it's pretty damn insane. I'll talk a little bit through the mechanics and why it's able to do this and why it's able to clear this fast. So yeah, just I'll just take a moment to basically just show you guys just how crazy it is, right? The Legion clear is extremely satisfying because of the way that the skill is actually, you know, splitting to different targets. So you see, like, it pretty much just obliterates the entire
It looks
Legion.
interesting.
And then of course you'll have to like maybe look for a couple rares here and there, but because of the fact that the mine is auto-targeting, you know, you're just walking around and it just clears that all up. So yeah, Exsanguinate is pretty damn good. It's, you know, you guys know, like, I really like mapping, and I'm gonna be doing a mapping focused league start in general, so that's why I choose to play this build. And yeah, that's basically the map right there. And it
So he's
freezes everything, which is like
he's
a
gonna
huge
play
part
this
of its
build at
defenses,
league start?
right? We're able to do that because of some nodes that we allocate on the tree, which I'll basically show you guys right here. So we are taking the cold mastery here for 40% conversion because we are doing physical to cold conversion. And until we actually have gloves that are able to convert 60% of our physical to cold, what you need to use here is the Hrimsoro unique gloves, and those are very
these
cheap.
are
You'll be able to
end
get access to
game
those,
gloves.
pretty much instantly for like 1 chaos.
Later on in the league.
Super accessible, so that's no problem at all. But we need to get as much freeze duration on the enemies as possible because of the fact that we are using Heat Shiver, and Heat Shiver is going to give us a ton of damage, up to 60% cold gained as extra once the monster is like at full chill effect as well as frozen. So essentially, this is gonna be amplified by the fact that we have, the additional freeze duration, and that's how we are able to freeze bosses and that sort of stuff. So it's really important to grab as much freeze duration as possible, for sure. Now, also, the reason why we are able to clear maps like we do is because we are using a chain. Now, in this case, I have Awakened Chain here, but of course, if you use normal chain, that's just one less chain. Not that big of a deal. But once you do have like a little bit of money, you will get Awakened Chain in here.
Little bit of money.
If you actually want to kill bosses, all you have to do is swap Awakened Chain or Chain for Trap and Mind damage, and then you'll just get like a crazy amount of more damage there from that. That's really nice. But because of the fact that we are chaining and we're using Exsanguinate, which splits up to 10 targets, so it says fires, tendrils at up to 10 targets, and then we are chaining 3 times. That means that essentially we are actually able to hit 30 targets per singular Exsanguinate, and then that also is amplified by the chaining range, and I think Trick Shot is an extremely important node here to get because this is basically 45% more clear, right? It's these nodes are absolutely essential for the build. And yeah, we're choosing the Trickster Ascendancy because the Trickster has easy access to a lot of defenses too. The Trickster has a lot of spell suppression. Spell suppression is going to be keeping you safe while you're mapping, and it's basically going to give you a ton of damage reduction versus anything that, there's a lot of spells in Path of Exile, and you're going to be reducing it by a ton.
Build looks
especially
cool,
while
but
you are on full energy
this
shield,
is
you're suppressing an extra 10%, which
high,
when
like
combined with
end game representation of the build, mostly with end game items and
so you
gems.
basically be immune to spells. However, that does not make you immune to elemental attacks and that kind of stuff. So how do we the ghost dance? And whenever we're hit, we have right now and be on your merry way. But otherwise, yeah, I hope to provide you guys with a little bit more context and information that you might need to really excel at starting this. Alright, so in the max roll guide, when you guys go to click the leveling tab, this is going to be the early map variant of the build into mid game and into end game.
Probably won't start this one.
Basically,
but it's cool. Maybe as a second, third character or whatever. Elemental hit is extremely strong. Fab gun.
Hey, so I'm going to make a new video going over the new insane gem, Elemental Hit of the Spectrum. So this was released about a couple days ago, and as soon as it came out, yeah, I thought this gem was absolutely insane. So I obviously want to share an updated POV and also explain why it's really strong. So the old Elemental Hit, the reason why I normally use this anymore is because it has this tag that says deal no damage of other damage types. So if you deal cold damage, you cannot deal fire or lightning damage. The reason why this is strong is that you can deal all the elemental damage now, meaning you can slot in a tri-Ellie bow and use this new Ellie hit, which was not possible with the last Ellie hit, giving you very high DPS. So if you are wondering, okay, how strong is this gem? Like, how actual strong really is this? I can show you right here. So this is my Val light arrow build, my league starter, posted a few days ago. We're at 4.8 million DPS, right? If you want to simulate this, essentially all you need to do is put in a level 1 tornado shot. Because for some reason, level 1 tornado shot doesn't have the negative attacks multiplier. It's just bugged in POB, but it works for us, I guess. So yeah, level 1 tornado shot has the exact same attack speed as this, and it has the exact same attack damage as Elemental Hit, a Spectrum. So yeah, and then we put in the custom modifiers. The custom modifiers being the Elemental Hit, flat damage, and more multipliers. And you see, we go to 6.9 million, essentially 7 million DPS, right? Which is like 40% more damage around there 35% more damage. So yeah, slotting this elemental hit into my League Starter Pob, it's just straight up better than Light Arrow. And this is with a 1.1k LED DPS bow. So with absolutely no changes, it's already better. But I do want to talk about two big downsides. So the first downside is the AoE is smaller. So this has a 1.5 meter base radius, while Lightning Arrow has a 1.8 meter radius. So Lightning Arrow, yeah, is 20% more AoE essentially, 20% more coverage. So that would give it slightly better clear. But obviously the more damage from this should make up for it, especially in the early game. So the thing is, since this is pure flat damage, this is way better when you are weaker, because it's straight up additive with essentially the damage on your bow. So when you have like 600, 700, 800 LED DPS bow, this gem has a lot more value. Like if you have a 700 LED DPS bow, then this gem at level 20 will straight up double your DPS compared to Lightning Arrow. So yeah, very,
this
very
is
strong.
Interesting
So the second
new
downside I
gem
want to
to
mention
start.
is
Definitely it's better than the
element avoid
normal
maps.
LA
So if
hit.
you run an element avoid map and you
Probably
can't apply your elements,
Not as a
you're
first
not going to
character
get 50%
starts.
more damage per elemental element on
I mean, you
enemy.
can start. You can
So
start
if I take this modifier off, for example,
lightning arrow and then
you
transition
have 4.8
into
DPS.
elemental
What you see,
hit.
that is pretty much the exact same DPS as we were before with Lightning Arrow. So essentially this is almost strictly better than Lightning Arrow, except it has slightly worse AoE. But of course, you know, that is a downside. So yeah, this gem is just absolutely insane, and I went ahead and made a full POB for LE hit. It's at 8.6 million DPS. We are essentially the only changes here. We're using Secrets of Suffering, so we can get more ailments, because every ailment is 15% more
Yeah,
damage.
you can start elemental. You can start to lightning arrow and then transition to elemental hit of spectrum once you get the gem, I guess. And once you have like a 700 melee DPS bow, probably you want to craft one with either rog or whatever.
And then of course I'm using skitter bots. So we use skitter bots to apply chill and shock. And then we use Secrets of Suffering to avoid Scorch, Brittle, and Sapped, for a total of 5 ailments. So yeah, this build's 8.6 million DPS, and we're also using the Warlord's Mark Berserk tech. I think I'm also gonna use automation here for Berserk, so I won't even have to click it. So that'll be nice. I have an extra gem socket. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I am gonna League Start this now. Of course, you can't like fully League Start it because it's a transfigured gem, so only way you can get it is through lab. I'm personally not gonna farm lab. I'm probably just gonna play Lightning Arrow, and then when a few pop up on trade for like 10 or 15 chaos, I'm just gonna buy it. But if you want to farm lab for the gem, feel free to do so.
10 or 15 chaos.
This gem is
It's probably gonna be more expensive than that. Righteous Fire. I think I played once or twice. Righteous Fire. Don't think I'm gonna start this one.
The purpose of this video is to pretty much just get you guys jump started so you can jump right on into the RF Chieftain. I'll try to be as fast as I can with some of this stuff, but there's a lot of things to do, so let's jump right on into it. If you've never used my website before, I try to make this as beginner friendly as possible, but more so just as clean as possible. If you are brand new and or want to get started right away, I have an Act 1 through Act 10 Chieftain walkthrough, so you can actually start playing right now with a video I recorded. It goes through the entire campaign for you. Go check it out. Furthermore, let's go ahead and talk about some pros and cons. So on my website here, you're going to go ahead and go to the RF FAQ. Also, if you want to just snag the POB and just leave right now, that's fine as well. Go ahead and just copy it from right here and go ahead and import it. So from here, we're going to hit up the RF FAQ. We're going to go ahead and take a look at some pros and cons. So if I go ahead and type in Chief here, what is better, Juggernaut, Inquisitor, or Chieftain? For the purpose of this, we're going to focus more on Chieftain. So Chieftain's got a little bit of a slow Act 1, just like, you know, Juggernaut, because we're both Marauders. I like to mule and get caster gems, so this is basically leveling another character. It's only a few minutes long. It doesn't take that long at all. You can go check out the campaign video if you want to see how it's done. You don't get a ton of regeneration from your Ascendancy like Juggernaut and Inquisitor. However, you do have a much easier time gearing because your Fire Res splashes to your Cold and Lightning, so you only stack Fire Res. It's by far got the best mapping experience with built-in explodes, which we'll jump into in a minute. It's the worst for bossing on a budget because you have to stand still for most of your damage. This sounds pretty bad. It's not that bad for mapping. It can be more of a pain in the ass for bossing. This is not nearly as bad when you're able to just face tank though. It has the best experience dealing with map mods because of Ramako's Sunlight. This literally eliminates mods such as monsters gain bonus elemental res, monsters are fire and ignite resistant, monsters are possessed and have bonus elemental res, monsters gain endurance charges. You get the point. Anything that has to do with elemental res, Chieftain does not care. This is a double-edged sword though, because this means when you're doing bossing encounters, you cannot minus their res past -20. So to go ahead and jump into that, which we'll explain in just a minute, first we're going to look at defensive layers, and then we're going to go ahead and look at the POB real fast. Here are some of the things you can expect on your Righteous Fire Chieftain on minimal gearing, maybe like, yeah, I'd say minimal gearing. 1.5k life regen, 5k plus life, literally immortal against physical damage when you have your physical conversion set up. You won't be immortal right away. This one is more of a later thing, but you'll be very resistant against it. Very strong against physical damage over time due to Cloak of Flame. This means bleeds are literally irrelevant. 90 max all res, this is very cheap to set up. Freeze immune, ignite immune, shock resistant, Defiance of Destiny. This is an endgame chase item, will probably be very expensive, but this makes your character immortal while mapping. Not needed for any of this content though, and a bit of reduced crit damage taken. So let's go ahead and close out of that. Before we close out of it though, go back to the home page, make sure you snag your Righteous Fire Chieftain build, and if you're curious on a loot filter for this, you can also go ahead and click here for the loot filter. Last thing, and then I'll close out of the website. If you're more of a written person, you want to read that information, I'll have a written version of the Chieftain done probably in the next couple of days. You can find that on PoE Vault. So right now I have the Juggernaut and the Inquisitor version. There'll be Chieftain as well. All right, let's go ahead and close out of that and snag or take a look at the POB. So one of the nice things about Chieftain, and also how the POB is set up, if you start at the beginning here and look at 1 to 20, take the items, go to 1 to 20, look at the skills 1 to 20, this is going to go ahead and explain everywhere you need to go at X point in time. Furthermore, when you look at the skills, if you go ahead and pay attention here, you'll actually see there's a lot of extra text here. This is telling you what gems you need to pick up when you make your mule. This is helping you put in a regex at the beginning of the game to highlight some intelligence gear and boots with movement speed. Over here, we've got your primary links you want to use. For people who don't like rolling magma, there is a setup for your Holy Flame Totem instead. It's got your auras, your mobility, and then a lot of people always ask what should you level and what doesn't need to be leveled. This kind of explains this. This clarity is shown as you go through the other stages of the build. It's got all detail for you. Now, going on and checking the Chieftain Ascendancy, because this is the main appeal of what people want, I want to go ahead and explain some stuff. So let me just take the build drop down and go to 80 to 93. We'll put this one from 61 to 93, and then here we'll just go 81 to 93. You'll notice I have 215 fire resistance. If I take off this node, Sallow Cleansing Water, take a look at what happens to our resistances. This one node by itself carries your entire resistance. This is not just quality of life, this also basically allows more gear to have more aggressive suffixes. An example is most accessories, your jewelry like your rings, a lot of people like life tri-res. This gives Chieftain the opportunity to get damage over time multiplier there, fire damage, dexterity, a lot of really good things, frenzy charges. One of the other nice ones is if you look at my maximum fire res at 90%, Balako's Storm Embrace allows you to splash your max fire res to all of your other resistances. This makes it very easy, even in an SSF environment, to achieve 90 max res. Ramako's Sunlight is the one I was talking about with you have to be stationary to get your damage. It's really not as bad as it seems. When you are shield charging through maps, at the end of your shield charge, you are going to be considered stationary for maybe like 0.2 of a second, depending on how fast you move. Oftentimes, this is enough time to trigger an explosion. Here that there are a lot of explodes proccing. The explode proc is just that little 5% node, and that 5% node only gets stronger and stronger as you go through your map tier and just add more and more monsters. Also notice my life regen is like not very good right now. This is because I have no uniques equipped. There are some cheap uniques you can get to jumpstart the build, such as Rise of the Phoenix, Immortal Flesh, Kikizaru. These are all fantastic options to assist your build. They're also all very cheap. Let's go ahead and zoom over to the map boss. I think it's over here. Sometimes the map boss will occasionally get one shot. So here's actually the map boss right here. Sometimes you get lucky and you get an explode. Actually, I don't think the explode got to hit him, but sometimes the explode hits him and will literally one-shot map bosses. So this is your starting character, what your initial maps are going to look like. Let's go ahead and jump a little bit further. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and jump into this character. Now, this character just finished a Eater and Exarch run. Oops. I was really lazy in this run. I'd probably say my Exarch Eater runs are closer to like 12 hours. This character, though, like I said, we just finished Eater and Exarch. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into a high tier map for you guys. Unfortunately, I don't have a good map to show because I'm out of maps right now, but Commander Kirak should actually have a map for us. So let's go ahead and peek. Here is a tier 16 map. Poison on hit's probably really dangerous for us. Let's go ahead and check it out though. Now at this stage, you're pretty much the previous character. You're just a lot thicker, right? So you can see here, we've got like 83 max res now. Still not very amazing. Actually, this guy has 66 chaos res. That's what's nice about RF Chieftain, actually, is that you can easily get very high max chaos res by stacking the fire and chaos res crafts that you unlock, because fire res also gives you cold and lightning res. So a fire and lightning craft turns into fire, cold, lightning, and chaos. This character is also rocking a 4-link fire trap still, so we don't have a 5-link or anything for that. Let's see if we can get a nice explode. Maybe we get lucky here. The boss is right here. No explodes. Still no explodes. Actually getting bullied by this top pack up there. That's kind of weird. Not the fastest map clear or boss killing, like I was saying. When you're on very minimal gear, it's not going to be that amazing. Was that actually the map boss we just killed? Oh, okay, so he blinked into the blue pack and then the explode scooped him up. Have no fear though, we do get a lot more single target on this build. This is because we're still in the very early stages. We're on a 4-link fire trap. We don't have 21 gems. We're not running Malevolence yet. Later in the build, we pivot into physical damage taken as. This allows us to drop armor scaling, and that way we can fit in Malevolence. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop off of this character. And let me go ahead and show you kind of like your pinnacle endgame, we'll call it. So over here, I've got my level 100 chieftain from Affliction League, and he's pretty geared. However, let's go ahead and remove some of this gear. So I normally would be using a Mage Blood, all my flasks, and my charms. Instead, I have removed all of my charms from the character. So we have no charms on. I have replaced my Mage Blood with a very expensive belt you can find here. And I'm going to just not have any flasks on, since flasks are getting, well, basically this flask specifically is getting nerfed in the patch for the way we would play it.
Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and just jump into a map. I think I have, let's do a Redeemer. Sure.
He has the good amulet.
Sure. Let's do some monster life on Redeemer. Now this character, you'll notice, is going to have more enhanced explodes. And the reasoning on the enhanced explodes on this character is because we have something called Ignite Proliferation. That's your choice how you want to access it. I usually will either go with Fan the Flames on a cluster jewel, or I will go with, instead of having the fire multi here, you can have Ignite Proliferation. Either one of these sources is just fine. There is another option where you can use Barracks Respite, which is a ring that does not necessarily give you proliferation, but it adds massive clear speed by making your Ignite kind of chain. Normally this character is a lot faster, but I'm not using Blood Rage because I kind of took off a lot of my sustain and I don't really want a degen right now. Now I do want to bring a little bit of attention to this. They did introduce new tier 17 maps in Path of Exile. which are going to be in between, I believe, Pinnacle bosses and Uber bosses. I do want to state that Righteous Fire builds, specifically mine, are more focused on very tanky mappers, also very quickly at mapping when they are geared appropriately. I do think RF is going to be able to tackle some of the tier 17s, but I think it's a bit ambitious to say this is my build for clearing T17 content and Ubers. I think Righteous Fire is best played as a tanky mapper with mid-tier investment, and if you really like the build, you can go ahead and keep shoving in currency to make it clear Ubers and even most likely a lot of the tier 17 maps. But always understand that builds that are focused more on bossing are going to have a much better time with that.
Not a T16
so you can see
map.
here by this character,
But
you're able to squeeze a decent amount of damage on Righteous Fire, but I will go ahead and throw down some numbers to help you guys out. I would say people in SSF are not going to be achieving more than 1 million damage between your RF and your Fire Trap, most on your Fire Trap. By the time they're probably level like 90, 91, 92, somewhere around there. You can expect an SSF to peak your damage to about 2 to 2.5 million after acquiring your Elder Helm, your 6th Link, and a few other things. It's going to be harder to go past 3 million in SSF. In Trade League, I'd say you're going to have a much easier time hitting about 3 to 3.5, closer to 4 million damage, but going from 4 million damage to a much higher ceiling is when it gets very expensive, and this is because the very endgame versions use the Adorn Jewel, which is probably going to be ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
That being said, you don't need this to clear any of your Void Stones. You can access your 4 Void Stones on a budget. Most builds are clearing Exarch and Searing Worlds with just standard life res gear, RF included. When it comes to Maven and Uber Elder, I think most RF players are going to be able to clear Maven with minimal investment. We're talking about just your 6th Link. You don't even really need the 6th Link. Maven is more of a mechanics check, so if you can hit 1 million damage, you are already more than capable of doing Maven.
I mean,
Uber Elder is a spec.
Yeah, definitely not the league starter for me. This one will probably be like a 4th build or something. Depends. I don't know. But yeah, definitely elemental hit, detonate dead, I would say sanguinate minor, lightning arrow transitioning to the new transfigured elemental hit. Detonate dead will be my first, I think. As a 4th, Righteous Fire Chieftain, Explosive Arrow Champion.
After all,
Slytherin.
why shouldn't I play it? Wow, precious.
I think you've had that gem quite long enough.
You want the gem for yourself.
Zizoran!
Hi, Slytherin here with a build
Top-notch
guide
content
for the upcoming Necropolis League, and this is Explosive Arrow.
I played Explosive Arrow.
I am actually once again considering League starting Explosive Arrow because it looks so good this league. First, let's talk about the pros and cons compared to last league. We are losing a little bit of quality of life in the form of white sockets from Borichi. It means that you absolutely at all levels want to avoid a thicket bow. A grow bow even is going to be quite hard to color, but a short bow, quite easy. They will be quite expensive this league, so this is a actual downside to the build. As for upsides, a big problem in the past on Explosive Arrow has been the regen and sort of the staying power in boss fights. However, because of the new automated Warcry support, you can automate Enduring Cry very easily. So you're getting that nice burst of regen every now and again, which is a huge downside for Explosive Arrow. And we're getting those endurance charges for some additional physical mitigation on top of all the heavy physical mitigation we already have, making this an incredibly tanky build, even more than before. What makes this build look so exciting this week is the new tier 17 maps, and the thing that's incredibly strong for that is the taunt feature of Explosive Arrow. If this build guide helps you have a great league start, please consider subscribing. It helps me and my team out a lot. So first, I will cover a little bit of how this build actually plays. In maps, you're basically just throwing down the totem and running. I use Blink Arrow and Flame Dash so that I can blink then Flame Dash. They don't share cooldown, so they're both instant.
Yeah, I think
This
Yeah,
is
I
just
played
a
this
quality
one
of
a
life thing.
few times, I think.
Other builds like Ice Bear, etc.
Not my
will need these
favorite,
for-
but
or
it's
Artillery
decent.
Ballista will need these for
Okay.
actual damage, and the price will skyrocket. And we maybe not made it as clear in the past that it is just a clear speed thing. It decreases your damage for a single target.
Ashes of
Cast speed while
Stars.
focused, that is basically once you have this crafted, that'll appear on your skill bar as a skill. It's like a orange symbol. Once you're able to reach 25 stacks and have that much attack speed, then Ashes is really good. If you can't, even if you're at 17, 18, don't use an Ashes and try to get attack speed somewhere else. Each extra thing is very important. And real quick, I will walk you through the manual
you need to
calculation
hit your
because I do feel like
back
sometimes the
rate,
maximum
cap.
sustainable fuses isn't it exactly correct. So first, let's walk through how we actually calculate this. So we're going to add +1. So with this setup, we have 26. Maybe some people will be wondering, why are we only adding +1 and not 6 free totems or 6 free arrows because we have 6 totems? It's very shitty in my opinion to add 6 free totems. Sometimes one of your totems is going to be down, sometimes the boss is going to be
True.
moving, but you're at least always going to get 1 free arrow before the skill duration starts timing and the explosion goes off. So this makes sure that it'll always feel good. It is a lot easier to calculate it
Yeah,
this
make
way.
sure you guys
But
check
what if,
the important
let's
section.
say that we had 1.287 multiplied by 6, but let's say that we had an attack rate of, so that means that we could actually benefit a lot more from more things like Ignite to inflict with attacks, deal damage faster. However, if it was less, then you would actually benefit from duration. But since we have so much extra time,
I think you get
things like
on
Dying Dawn
boots
is just
also.
literally free damage for us because all we care about
Deal
is
damage
per
faster.
second. We are about to run through a lot of easy things for this build that you could mess up and lots of tips and tricks, but do make sure that you check the notes section of the build. We do have a lot of things here and super in-depth stuff on the max rod.
Converting the minion attack speed that is applied to you.
Why do we have minions have 28% increased attack speed on the bow? And that is because of this right
spiritual
here.
command.
Spiritual command. Really good. But you will need feasibility for somewhere else. Early on, you will totems, they're continuously attacking. So some builds, like for example Bone Shatter or Toxic Rain, they only have damage while they're actively attacking. So sometimes a 10 million damage build can feel like a 3 to 5 million damage. I always feel like Explosive Arrow feels like more damage than the paper dolls actually show. But for mapping, what I like to do, and this is where you really want to get a Omen of Blanching on your helmet to get a white socket here, because you want to swap between Grace and Malevolence. Now, a good thing here is that Malevolence will make it slightly worse for mapping. However, most of the bosses don't have any auto attacks, so it's very easy to do this swap. So you can absolutely just play with Malevolence all the time, but you will get hit by a lot more auto attacks. You can see here that we have Skitterbots as well. A cool thing with Skitterbots is that if you drop that Ignite Prolift gem, and if you then get Awaken Burning, it is such a large damage increase. It's one of the best things you can do. And you can see here, we do have Empower as we are still getting 100%. Now, we are getting 25 from Combustion, we have some base chance to hit, and we have different ways. We can get a Helmet Implicit, that is Eater of Worlds, and that is 10% chance to ignite.
Globes.
We can, in the end game, get a Redeemer Helmet, that has 15% chance to ignite. However, even if you don't have any of these options, you are at a 90% chance to ignite, and
That you can get on
you are
gloves
using
also.
Arcanist Brand with a flammability for bosses. So for bosses, you basically have a 110 chance to ignite, making this not an issue, and the 90% is more than enough for mapping. Early on this build, we are hit-based, and basically when we're swapping over from hit-based to DAW is once you're able to start picking up Holy Fire, you go from Precise Technique to Elemental Overload. Make sure you never have these at the same time. Elemental Equilibrium. So if we see here, the way it works is you want to have cold or lightning damage on one of your items, and more importantly, you do not want to have fire damage anywhere. No fizz as extra fire, etc. So if you see on my gloves is my only
Make sure you read this.
source
This is very
of
important.
any flat damage to attacks. You can
The
actually
damage is
have
gonna be screwed if
fire
you miss this.
percentage damage, but flat fire to attacks, etc. Very important that you don't have that. So this 13 to 23 cold damage, if I hover over here, you can see the 2 lines at the top. I have some cold
No
damage, I have
pierce.
some lightning damage, both
Also important.
damage them
There's a lot
before,
of
and you are
important
not sure
sections
what's happening.
that you need
You are
to
literally
check.
what's happening? Why are they? What's happening? Well, you probably equipped Pierce anywhere. And if you have Pierce, what that does is the explosion needs to stick in the target and then explode. This build cannot have any Pierce at all. There's one more issue you could do with this build, and sometimes you'll be noticing that they're firing in a weird pattern, and if you're doing this against a single target, you'll be doing no damage. So what's happening here? Well, we have gotten bow attacks fire 1 additional projectile, and what happens then, and you can see here now, is, and honestly it won't be that bad for clearing, but you will do no damage to bosses. And what's happening is that they're firing in a V, and this will basically miss single targets entirely. So it might not be super noticeable for clearing, but I've had a lot of people reach out and be like, hey, since I'm dealing no boss damage, and then I'll see that they actually have +1 projectile somewhere, which actually breaks the build. So those are 2 of the biggest mistakes you could possibly do on Explosive Arrow. So an important thing here is you need to have either
plus
1,
having fire damage on your items or extra pizzas fire.
3 or
3
5
important things you need to
projectiles. All of
make
those
sure
are
you don't
okay. You
have.
just want an odd number. If you have an even number, it'll start firing in a V shape. So, Scissorin, why are we not running Deadly Elements? It's one of the highest damage supports.
very
Or is
completely
it? It is
build
really,
guide.
really good, especially
Good
for
job,
bosses,
Ziz,
but
as
there are
always.
some really big downsides to Deadly Elements. And you'll see that it changes our actual hit very, very low. So right now our average damage is 900,000 per actual explosion. That goes down to 179,000. Now a huge downside of this is anytime you encounter those monsters that are ignite immune, etc., that will you will really notice it. And more importantly, the running the map mod of avoid ailments is actually very doable when you don't run daily ailments. I have no big problem with that because the explosion does so much damage. However, if you have deadly ailments in, you will hate yourself in these maps. So
Yep.
it is something to consider that you can run deadly ailments, and it is a green gem. Other map mods you want to avoid. No regen is really annoying on this build. The number 1 map mod
Yep.
you want to avoid is enemies cannot be taunted. That will make that you have 50-60% accuracy, you like lose a lot of your defense, etc. Definitely avoid that mod. Another really good amulet for this build is Replica Dragonfang. However, they can be quite rare and very expensive, and often crafting a
Yep.
rare amulet is more than enough. So, bows have changed quite a lot. In last league, you could actually use a thicket bow because it was so easy to get white sockets. So getting an item level 86 thicket bow gives us that up to 100% elemental damage with attacks. The second highest elemental damage with attacks is at item level 81, and it is possible to get short bows. So make sure you have item level 81 plus short bows on your filter. 86 will be incredibly rare. Your best case of getting one is going to be a blight ravaged map. Grove bows are quite doable to get. However, getting perfect colors in this can be still over 2,000 crumbs. So a big pain. Omens can help with this, but remember that this will recolor the item and this is going to be a little bit more in-depth strategy, but it's super worth mentioning, especially for this build. And this is something where you could effectively brick your atlas, so I do want to explain it early, and this would also help you in other builds. So in gardens, we have a div card called the Porcupine. It can be a bit of a pain to farm. It can take upwards of like 10 hours of farming.
In,
but how do we get a lot of
Desert
gardens
also,
maps?
no?
So if we have a tier 5 gardens as the only tier 5 map, we clear it. We don't do any of the others. Technically you could do courtyard, but in this strategy we're not going to do that. So we have tier 5 gardens as the only tier 5 that we clear. I'm also going to do cemetery as the only tier 4 I clear. And now what's going to happen is, first off, we're going to bounce very neatly between those two quite often. However, if I'm doing a tier 7, 8, 9, etc., in any of these maps, if a tier 5 drops, it is always going to be a gardens. It is always going to be a cemetery. So when you are getting like your yellow points and maybe even later red points, if you're going up early, you will notice a large amount of these maps. So I normally clear this as my tier 5, clear this as my tier 4, and you can use horizon orbs to do this. Then I start completing my yellow maps here, and by the time I've gotten a bunch of Atlas skill points, I will also have a large amount of tier 5 gardens because every tier 5 that drops will be a gardens map. Now there's no way to uncomplete maps on the Atlas, so if you accidentally complete it with a Shrieking Dread, it will force 50 bow. You can't use anything else than dreads. You need dreads to force the item level, because if you were rolling this naturally, you could only hit +1. However, with a Shrieking Dread, it will force tier 2, and this is super strong because even though it's item level 50 bow, we can now make it +3. So what I'd be looking for now is I am looking for attack speed. Can be tempting to take high like damage over time multiplier, but we're normally looking for attack speed and open affixes.
You want attack speed?
Let's look at this bow. We have an open suffix, we have no open prefix, which we do need. In this case, I can use a Orb of Annulment. I didn't hit what I wanted to hit. We hit another Orb of Annulment, we remove the cold damage, and hopefully we don't remove the bow or attack speed, or I would have to start over. Now, what we do next is we do cannot roll attack mods. Boom. And now, we just use an Exalted Orb. We hit a dead suffix. This doesn't matter. We just needed to fill up. Obviously, it would be great if it hit something crazy. But now, the next Exalted Orb is going to guarantee +1 level of Socketed Gems. So whenever an Exalted Orb hits a prefix, while you have cannot roll attack mods, you're guaranteed +3. Now, on the last one, we simply craft the minion attack speed, which we've already explained why it gives you attack speed earlier in the segment, but now we have a perfect bow for early game, and then we can start saving up for ideally
like total like 2 divines or so,
short bow or maybe a grow bow, and then spend an eternity
crafting
recoloring
cost,
it, or just go for item level 81, and that will be quite obtainable.
Or the
and then
mod.
we can create a more advanced bow later on. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Sub if you liked the video, but more importantly, try to die less than I do, and good luck for Necropolis League.
Okay, anything else? Hex Blast, Explosive Arrow, Toxic Rain, Caustic Arrow. Explosive Chaff Trickster.
And also my Archmage Hierophant is now officially out. I will also link that in the other guide. And Scourger of Menace, we're going to talk about in a second.
I already played Hex Blast last
There's
week.
always stuff that falls through the cracks on these guys, obviously. So if there's like anything missing, definitely hit me up on Discord or something. Link is down in the description. Tell me if there's like a mistake. I can't do anything about it. I tried to be as thorough as possible, but yeah, it is what it is. Also, as of the release of this video, automation support and call to arms support are not in there yet. So if you see like a 3-link and there's nothing there, there's a good chance there's going to be an automation support there later. If you see an enduring cry and there's just like randomly thrown in there, there's most likely going to be call to arms there. Number one, let's talk about Scourge Arrow and Caustic Arrow Ballista. So these builds, what I played last league, and they were fantastic. One of the best league starters I've ever had. And that was mostly because of tinctures. We had a tincture here, all damage can poison. So if you're wondering, if you haven't played it last league, this is not in the game anymore, obviously. So now we have to do with Fizz and Chaos Bows. Does that mean it's going to be bad? I don't think it's going to be a Dark Scorn. At this point, I really think that Toxic Rain Ballista is just a strictly better build in that sort of like... Honestly, not much changed, but you can now get endurance charges with Enduring Cry, which is quite good, especially with your Immortal Call, or you can also not use it for Immortal Call, so you permanently have that 12% physical damage reduction up. Does it fit into the gem setup? Kinda. Am I gonna update on Max Roy immediately? Maybe not 100% sure. I usually like to do these like a league later. I mean, whenever I'm certain that it's already tested and all of that. Call to arms support has been a little bit of a weird one. I originally, just so you know, planned on having a Enduring Cry, Infernal Cry setup, but now they're saying it doesn't work like that. It actually doesn't trigger like multiple war cries, and the trailer they showed where that was possible was just a bug. So fair enough, they probably just got scared and then removed it. Fair enough, you can still use Enduring Cry or Infernal Boost. So there is now the reduced mana cost of skills doing effect can no longer be unveiled or crafted on Flask. What does that mean for us? I actually did on POB, and it doesn't really come out to much of a change if you didn't use Divine Blessing, but if you use the Divine... First, I was really concerned because of the automation support changes, and now I'm fine because they added a mastery. In case you guys don't know, there is now a new mastery, which I have here. Detonate Mines is triggered while you're moving. This is basically what left click used to do. Now you have to take a mastery for it. Fair enough. They did, however, remove the AoE mastery, which gave you up to 100% AoE.
Yeah, that
A lot of people are
sucks.
saying, oh, minus 100 AoE, it's going to be a big deal. The thing is, kinda, but at the same time, you never really had all your mines up.
Yeah.
When you're clearing, it was more
Not
like
gonna
40, 50.
play any of these. Explosive trap fixture. The content.
Hi, Zizrin here with another league starter for the 324 in Acropolis League, and this is Explosive Drop. This is a really good buster. It is also a very not button intensive build. If this build guide helps you have a
What? Transfigured gem requires further testing for single targeting damage. Explosive trap or sharpen. Okay. Probably not gonna play this
super
one.
Basic, just life and resists, etc. No uniques. There's nothing that you really need to drop for this build that makes like that insane of an impact. So very good for a league starter. Very good for +2 scepter deterministically. So obviously this is fairly expensive and very endgame, but I did want to just show in Craft of Exile since it's
Thank you,
and obviously
build.
we do one thing say Taste of Hate and Lightning Coil because we do not have a lot of physical damage taken as elemental without it, and that would put us in a bit of a hole on physical. Decent amount of energy shield which we're getting by from ghost downs, skin gems or anything. We have 7.6 million hit DPS, and this is a build that we've gotten a lot of hitting scepter. They can be quite hard to get a hand of, however leadership's price comes from the unique on it. We do have loads of things in the notes, some upsides and downsides too, like a mana flask early is a bit of a pain, and mana in general this patch has been made a lot harder. But yeah, loads of things in the notes, so if you are running into any issues, this should answer everything. We're going to be dropping one step ahead and grabbing Spellbreaker, which is so nice for suppression and it's just really strong. Later on, we can get minus mana cost on rings and amulet, so you really want to do a lot of betrayal. Now, what is really good to do here is
Yeah, betrayal is gonna be big this league. A lot of people probably will farm it for currency. It's gonna be highly requested. Most of the items, Veiled Chaos Orb and such. Seven days ago. This tier league starter build. This one. DD. What is this skill? I forgot. Molten Strike, Deadeye? Wait, what? Really?
Hey Exiles, welcome back. Another eternally based video here. Now, I wasn't really sure if I was going to make another league start guide for this league, but
I started going through my channel and reading previous comments on the last few builds I made, and I was seeing that I really made an impact on a lot of people's league starts. I received a lot of positive comments of people telling me how awesome my builds were and how much progress they were able to make with something I just cooked up in POB. So I decided to come back with another build, and this league, I really aim to not disappoint. If you really thought my last builds are great, I think this is my greatest creation.
You did so much damage and got so many mage blood with this build. What the fuck?
So far. And like this guy said, he needs me to cook more often. I cooked again. So I present you all with the Molten Strike Deadeye build that I made. Now this build has S tier clear speed, S tier single target, all in a very affordable budget, and most importantly, it's a very fun build to play. It's been a pleasure, and it's really blown away all my expectations when labbing this build, and I'm proud to present it. So as you can see, the build is very zoomy, has a great coverage, a great clear speed, the single target is amazing. You can start it in Act 1 when you get Molten Strike, and you can scale it all the way into red maps very easily. And it's been a blast, man, and I'm very excited to share it. So here goes the gear breakdown. So with this build, we're using a cheap rare sword. You want flat fire damage, and you can just benchcraft and want increased fire damage. Molten Strike is scaled up a fire damage, obviously. It's called Molten Strike. So yeah, a very cheap and easy sword to craft, very attainable even on day one. Now the helmet, I'm using Malachi Simulate. Now this is good because it has spells deal 20%.
It's such a troll
chance to deal double damage.
Mage blood.
So our Molten Strike is basically 20% chance to deal double damage. Now our ring, we're just using a rare ring.
Mage blood league start.
69% life is on this ring, and then the chaos resistance implicit. It just has 69 life. This Comb's Heart is our chest piece. Now it's giving us a more fire damage multiplier, as well as giving us a lot of flat life. So yeah, it's really boosting our damage a lot. Now for the amulet, we're stacking a lot of attributes and strength, and this is allowing us to wear Comb's Heart.
This is a meme.
And then we're just gonna go with a shield with a high life roll. March of the Legion. This is gonna give us +5. Doing is just keeping our mana cost low. So it's a support because and a lot of recovery. It kind of feels like you're playing a Pathfinder. Now, acting with this build. So the fire gloves with this build, implicit with the Blessed Orb, and then you want to make it back normal, and then you want to go ahead and chance it. Now it's a 1 out of 3 chance to hit Fire Mage Blood. Oh, okay, now I actually hit it in this clip. Okay, I wasn't sure I hit it that clip, but yeah, it's a 1 out of 3 chance to hit the Fire Mage Blood, so it's not that bad. You'll get it pretty soon out of the end game. Now let's go over in-game gearing. Usually I go with the tabular Rasta.
Such a meme. Such a meme. Lightning arrow, I already saw that. Tuna posted already. Detonate Date Elementalist Bipolar. Close it trap again. Lead blow gladiator. Toxic Rain Pathfinder. Poison Concoction. I think this one need to be avoided. Got nerfed. Okay, let's check this one. Let's check the Popgun LA.
So I want to make a new video on my League Starter Legend Arrow Deadeye, which I still believe to be the best League Starter for softcore and also Soul Self-Found softcore. So this build essentially received 0 nerfs in the patch. I got a slight nerf on Sniper's Mark, but yeah, Light Arrow itself and Deadeye are still untouched. Only Tornado Shot was nerfed, but yeah. Let me do a map showcase real quick, then I'll talk about the whole build. So I plan to have this gear around day 2, it's usually when I have it. And yeah, this build is very, very fast. Very, very strong for Legion and really good for whatever farm you really want to do for maps. And highly, highly recommend. You can never go wrong with LA Deadeye. as Legion in the new patch is still going to be one of the best day 1 and day 2 currency makers. And yeah, as you can see, the clear is just really, really good. Yeah, compared to last league, there's only a slight few changes, primarily in the new Transfigure gems, since I'm now using stuff like Transfigure, Frenzy of Onslaught in the more endgame version, or essentially free Onslaught. Yeah, very nice there. But compared to last patch, it's practically untouched. You just no longer want to swap to Tornado Shot, and you just stay as LA forever. Yeah, I'll just go to map balls here, and then we'll talk about the build. I'll skip the last Legion for time purposes. Yeah, single target, you know, very, very good. Boss like still instantly dies. So yeah, let's talk about the build now. So
How about the
I made a
new
full
transfigured
level 1
shot?
POB. This is strictly just for leveling. You have all your gems here. I made a full note section, which I'll go over in a second. I also made multiple skill trees as you progress and level up. So level 21 all the way to level 78. And then usually around 78, this is when I swap to crit. Usually the start of yellow maps or end of white maps. So you just follow this tree like so. Just scroll down, and yeah, very easy progression, very, very nice. It's overall extremely fast leveler, but definitely one of the faster levelers there is. Not as fast as like Templar for speedrunning, but yeah, it's a very, very fast leveler. I also have the Ascendancy progression here as well. You want Gather Winds, then you want Far Shot, and then you want Endless Munitions. You can read this for yourself. There's also multiple guides on YouTube for this as well, but I thought I might as well put in the notes here as well. So once again, I have multiple trees. This depends on where you are in the build, and I have multiple item swaps. So match these with the tree. So if you're in a starter items, then match it with the starter tree. Same thing if you go to mid/high end, then just go with the
probably
mid.
gonna do this one as a
Third one,
late mid league or something. Get a late build. Probably, yeah, I think LA is gonna be a really good end game with the Necropolis League for farming, especially yeah, Headhunter, LA, with the new passive Atlas tree points that we got, a bunch of rares, Delirium and shit, Legion, basically guaranteed. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a fun league, end game farming with Lightning Arrow. So probably gonna make a Lightning Arrow character eventually. All-rounder, let's see, this one.
Detonate Dead Elementalist is a great all-round league starter if you want one build that can do a large variety of content. Anything from easy Atlas clearing to downing the bosses, all on budget gear. With a ton of damage coming from your skill gems and the level of the zone deciding your corpse HP, this is a great league starter for those who don't mind a few extra buttons for an easy travel into the endgame. With all the DD variations out there, Ignite is still a great option, without the need to purchase sought-after Transfigure gems to push into the endgame. Looking at you all cock DDers, okay, that's probably where I'm going to be at, or DD Necros. Ignite's still a great option though, with the bossing being fairly simple too, where you just fish for large Ignites and refresh them with an Arcanist brand setup. Plus, you've still got Ignite Pro left and some explosions with Obliteration, which is always sick as hell. Your mapping playstyle is as simple as casting Desecrate and then casting Detonate Dead. Ignites will pro lift, and on tanky rares or bosses, you'll cast Arcanist brand, which triggers your utility, and in between packs, you just pop your Divine Blessing haste. On bosses, all you've got to do is maintain an Arcanist brand, which applies your curses and refreshes your highest damage Ignite thanks to Defiled Forces. Then, all you've got to do is walk under the boss to scorch them, press your focus button to shock them, and fish for that large Ignite by spamming Desecrate DD and eventually Vol DD. Once you have that big Ignite, just stay near the boss, make sure your Arcanist brand doesn't fall off, and maintain refresh your Ignite. This build's defenses in the endgame are 94 evade chance, 100 spell suppression, 25 spell block, shock and freeze immunity, 45k armor, 20% chill on everything you hit, with room for purity instead of grace on bosses. You can swap a flask out for the new max res 1-2 depending on what boss you're doing. And in the end game, I've added a bossing tree that you can opt to use for Divine Flesh with the armor used against Chaos Damage Mastery. You can also slot in a Defiance of Destiny if your damage is comfortable enough, and if you can afford one, and they didn't do nothing to its drop rate. DD Elementalist scales his damage through a combination of Corpse Life from a level 20 Desecrate, a Kitava Herald in your corpse pool, fire damage, fire dot multi, scaling ailments through non-damage ailment effect, and defiled forces to refresh your ignites. If you're a bit new and you want a hand-holding guide to accompany the hand-holding video, head on over to my macro article, which will hold your hand step by step through the entire leveling and gearing process. Also, sub up fuckers, press that login button and the little red button to boot, and I won't play CF this league start, I swear, guys. All it takes is some subs and I won't play. That's it. That's all it takes.
Okay.
An important leveling tip is scooping the flat spell damage craft from behind Diala in Act 3. That woman that gives you the amulet. Just go back there and put Desecrate, Evolve, Detonate Dead, and a Kitava's Herald in your corpse pool, which is obtained by using Raise Spectre and a Desecrate in Act 10 Canal and holding A to find and summon the Kitava Herald. That's it. Now you can throw the Raise Spectre gem out. Your first Ascendancy choice is Shaper of Flames, followed by Mastermind of Discard and Heart Unveiled Craft on a high suppression res and life affliction, adding burning damage for your 6th link and upgrading them all to Awakened in the endgame. Your defensive auras are Determination, Grace, Defiance Banner, and Tempest Shield, swapping Grace for a Purity if you're doing endgame Pinnacle bosses and want the extra max res, and a Defiance Banner for a Dread Banner linked with Awakened Generosity in the endgame. Use Molten Shell linked with cast when damage taken at all times, and Shield Charge linked with faster attacks. Use the Desecrate linked with faster casting and Flame Dash, and a Divine Blessing linked with haste and inspiration early on, dropping the inspiration in the endgame and swapping the haste for Malevolence on Pinnacle bosses. At the start, you'll have to self-cast your Flame Surge and keep Wave of Conviction in an Arcanist brand setup until you get Exposure Gloves, where you'll then link Arcanist brand with Ellie Weakness, Flammability, and Flame Surge. Your early game tree is a generic Armageddon brand Cremation Witch tree, grabbing fire and ignite damage and reaching left to Templar for Elemental Overload, Aura Effect, Elemental and Life nodes, and reaching right for Eldritch Battery, Suppression, and Hybrid Life plus Energy Shield nodes. In the mid-game, you'll flesh out the tree with cast speed, damage, faster ignites, and additional curse, combined with defiled forces to refresh your ignites on enemies you curse, keeping that fat ignite on bosses with your Arcanist brand setup. Your endgame tree will be either mapping or a bossing variant. The mapping uses Grace and Dread Banner combined with a Brutal Restraint and Aura Effect on that Brutal Restraint nodes with evasion rating to reach 94 evade chance, combined with Energized Armor on the left side of Templar for big armor, while the bossing tree will drop some armor and go Divine Flesh and use the armor against Chaos Mastery for a little extra elemental mitigation and some mitigation against Elipen. For further upgrades, you can swap to a CI Aegis version and farm some Sims or any other difficult content, or you can use any other corpse skill on Witch or any ignite on Elementalist.
I think that's pretty much it for the league starters. I think I'm gonna do Detonate Date, to be honest. Exile posted a different version of this build. Captain Lance 1 hour ago. How to bait 101. Ice Nova Trickster. Molten Strike Champion. Corrupting Fever Champion. Take this on. See what Balamarji is saying. In Captain Lance, sorry.
You are nothing.
100k shield, not bad.
There's only horror. Resistance will be punished.
This was the Immortal build from last league, I think.
Time controls. Reality bends.
Can even tank that mechanic. Oh shit. Even tank that one. Holy fuck. Yeah, this was crazily strong. I don't know. It got nerfed probably. Probably got destroyed. Not sure.
Hello and welcome, Exiles. Now, full disclosure, this video is just for build creators. So if you're just a viewer, you can just go ahead and leave right now. It's okay. This isn't really for you. All right, guys. Now that they're gone, I gotta talk something, mano-y-mano. We're gonna look for the top tips on how to get people baited into playing your builds. I'm talking the cream of the crop. The best ways to make people think your build is actually good. Now, there's a lot of ways you can do it, and I'm gonna give you the full rundown. Now, to start with, if you notice, the intro to this video was actually my character from Standard with a bunch of mirror tier legacy gear. Now that's step number one. If you're showcasing a build, make sure to showcase a version of the build that people can't even hope to get in League. And don't tell them, just say, you can make it in League. It's not really that big of a difference. Don't really stress the fact you're using like some of the most insane, unethical gear possible. They don't need to know that. They just need to know the build looks strong. So that's step number one. Step number two, if you notice the Phoenix showcases, I actually did a bunch of shrines, and then I cut to the part where I had 10 shrines on my character, so that way the character looked really strong. You get a speed shrine, an HP shrine, a defense shrine, a res shrine. Just stack a bunch of those. Don't really mention it, and then the Phoenix kill will look better because you're moving faster, you have more defensive than you really should have, and people don't really pay attention to that stuff. They don't really notice that you have a bunch of shrine buffs. Same goes for Headhunter. If you do Headhunter footage, just make sure you have a bunch of those stacks going. Don't show the footage before you get the stacks. Show the footage after you get the stacks. That really just makes it look a lot stronger. Now, other steps, practical ways, if say you have some viewers that are questioning your integrity and they're like, hey man, you have a mage blood. Does the build even work without it? Just use some things point at your mage blood and say, my friend got this in 900 chance orbs. It's actually not that hard to get. And the thing is, even if you get this, or you don't have this, don't worry. Mage blood got nerfed in the patch notes. It lost the reduced mana cost thing. It lost the all res. It's not even that good of a belt anymore. Make sure to deflect. You can't really stress the fact that the gear that they can acquire isn't important. We both know it is important, but you don't want to tell them that. You want to make sure they don't realize how strong your gear is or how necessary it is. Step number two in terms of gear deflection or not really pointing out something obvious. For example, I have Shaper's Touch here. Now you'll notice these gloves, they say 2% per 10 energy shield. These actually got nerfed. This is what I'm talking about. Legacy gear, people don't usually pick up on it. You might just say Shaper's Touch and they just go along with it, but in reality, this is giving us like twice the energy shield of the new version, but don't tell people that. They don't need to know. So Legacy gear that's unaffordable, just deflect and say, the new stuff's just as good. Always gets by without a snitch or without a catch. People don't really realize or notice. That works out perfectly. Now that's some of the main stuff you can do in-game when you're trying to deflect off people that are pointing out how OP your gear is. Now, if they say, okay, they really aren't giving you any slack on the gearing. Well, there's things you can do in PoB to get around that. For example, in PoE, there is the unholy power of the configuration tab. So say you can't get away with your configuration having a mage blood on it. You can always just start putting stuff in the configuration tab that makes you have the power of a mage blood without having the mage blood on your character. So this is the second level of separation. If people start to notice your gear's too good,
effective
you need to start making the gear good without making the gear good. You know what I'm saying? You need to put in the configuration tab, you need to hide it so they can actually see it. So first off, one of my go-to favorites is the 200 all res. This basically allows you to have a bunch of gear that doesn't have res on it. So it looks like your gear's trash. It looks like you have a bunch of 2-stat items, and people will start to think, yo, this gear is affordable. What they don't realize is the only reason you're res capped is because of this stat. Now you just want to leave that out.
69K.
You don't want them to consider the fact that they might actually have to have res on every piece of gear where there isn't. You don't want them to realize that. Now, one thing I should notice is you want to be subtle with it. So you see right here, it says like plus 200. This is a little bit too obvious. Well, you can just take off all those T1 suppress rolls you put on your 2-stat gear pieces, and you can build for hardcore. My answer is generally, I don't play hardcore. I'm not a hardcore player. That's not my field of interest. I don't want to answer that question. I'm not comfortable with it. This is maybe the route I would go, but I would suggest getting a second source, stuff like that. Is if you don't actually know what you're talking about, maybe you should shut up about it. The other things are things where you do League Start builds without League Start testing, or you have gear / trees made entirely in PoB. I'm trying to make a fun video. I wasn't sure if I'm gonna have enough time to record bait or no bait. So I do this as a pseudo substitute if I don't get around to bait or no bait. And then outside of the most powerful clusters, for example, things like the Sovereignty Wheel, things like that's the other power creep. The main 2 power creeps that happened last league was Adorn.
I think trans gems are very, very doable at League Start. You can self-farm like a lot of your own shit too, right? If you really want to play it. Like the thing is, the clear is like really, really good. Like when we do Legion, like even Legion at League Start is gonna be like okay, right? Look at this. I was like doing Legion at League Start, and like everything just feels like really, really good. I mean, this is a day 2 PoE, right? Well, this one is actually 9.5 million on day 2, plus 1.5, so 11 million on day 2, right? And this is I don't know, that is basically attack speed, crit, and hits can't be evaded. Those are the only 3 things on your weapon. Like a fire damage to shield with 1 crafted mod. The dex doesn't. I don't think the dex matters. So.
Click on the PoB.
Just, like suppression. It doesn't even. I'm like 6 over, right? Am I 6 over? No, I'm actually right on point. Like it's like whatever gear, like a shit chest, like a shit thing, some res boots. Oh, this is not even the right POV.
Check the POB path of building. I think I'm gonna start this one, to be honest. I think I will start this one. Let's do new import code for this build. Wait, is this the same? I think this is the same. Skills, items, leveling. This is the same. Yeah. Let me check. Yeah, this is the same. I want to get the other one. Let's see. In game, isn't this the same POB? Let's see. Import for this build. This got, I mean, it's level 100. Level 100. Skills. This is like end game. Later on, yeah. Save as. Fuck. The. End game. Okay. So this has almost 12 mil. Ignite DPS. Hit DPS. Yeah, 12 mil. Around 12 mil. Fizz max. I mean, it's not very tanky. Fizz max hit. I mean, elemental hit, effective heal pool, 89k. It's okay. It's decent. It's good. It's good. I'm gonna trigger this with Lancing Steel. Huh? Okay. And if we... Yeah, it's like half DPS with the in-game tank here. Items. 5 mil. Yeah, it could lose a bit of yes, I guess. Be a bit more tankier. 168k effective hit pull. It's like, yeah, almost double the normal one. Okay. Okay. I mean, probably gonna start either this lightning arrow. I mean, this one, probably exsanguinate mines. Or whatever it's called. Lightning arrow transition to elemental hit, the new transfigured gem. Either that, RF jug. No, RF. You want to go? Let's see. Marauder. Yeah, probably gonna start this. Let's see. Anything else?
In the game, so I wanted to make a video where I can kind of side by side show
Ignite.
who knows how much chaos it's going to cost to buy Detonate That, a chain reaction of Trade League. So you're going to be able to skip that. I think it's a lot easier to get, you know, a ball gem compared to a transfigured gem.
Hit based.
Ascendancy point. And you get to use haste, and it actually gives you damage. We're using haste on Ignite Elementalist just for it to feel better, even though Malevolence would be like the damage aura. But haste on Necromancer, DD of Chain Reaction, is actually like damage, and it helps you go faster. We also get an offering. We get Bone Offering for a ton of block, adds a lot of defense, survivability. In maps especially, it's a little worse on bosses, but in mapping defense, when you're getting hit a lot, it's really good. Or is Inquisitor, cast on crit, Detonate Dead of Chain Reaction. Big title. So without waiting, let's just get straight into the pluses and minuses here. So the biggest plus for a lot of people is gonna be it's one button.
Yeah.
And I'm not coping one button. One button. You have mark on hit that applies your curse. You press Lancing Steel Spraying and it casts your Detonate Dead. It casts your Desecrate for you, and you just right click, and then you use your move skills like normal. but actually one button playstyle, which is not a thing that usually happens for DD. So that's going to be the biggest plus there for a lot of people. And because we're mixing these setups into like one cast on crit 6-link or 5-link, you have open gem sockets for fun things like the new Call to Arms gem with Inquisitor. We have Ellie Pen on. I've tried. Doesn't work. You need a 5-link. The main reason is that you put, cast on crit, Lancing Steel, Desecrate, and your DD gem in a 4-link, and then you have no crit chance, and you need the increased crit chance support. That's the 5th link. That's what you need. And not only that, you need to farm a ton of lab. I'm expecting to be in lab 3-4 hours, potentially. You need
that's gonna be an issue.
quality on your Assassin's Mark to generate power charges, for sure. And you need quality in your Lancing Steel so it has more projectiles. So keep that in mind if you're going to play this and you're in lab for a while. And
Yo,
we're also
Abisushi,
playing
thanks for the
cast on
follow.
crit build
What's up, man?
very early
Happy
on.
Thursday. Welcome to
So
the
it takes a
stream.
bit to
How you
ramp
doing?
up. Your crit chance is not that high, especially if you're in SSF. In Trade League, you can have access to things like Carnage Heart, which give you a lot of crit chance from like the attributes and stuff.
Yep.
But in SSF, the crit chance early is going to be pretty rough. And you don't even get to use a Quartz Flask because you need to run a Diamond Flask. So that kind of stinks. And then perhaps the biggest thing for most people is that you really need an MTX if you play this version especially. It destroys your PC. If you don't have a good PC, steer clear. The default Desecrate especially really hurts performance.
Didn't they said they kind of fix it on Reddit with the dynamic culling
Definitely
option?
also want the NTX for DD if you can get it. It's not as required. Desecrate hurts performance way more because it leaves like
So
the desecrated ground.
If they didn't fix it, you're probably gonna need to buy the MTX for the Desecrate and Dayone did. Hopefully they fixed the issue.
Base right. So if you're not like standing still, right clicking, you're not really doing damage. So once you get tanky enough to the point where you can tank everything, which you probably will get to that point, especially with the recovery's crazy. Once you get tanky enough to get to that point,
that's
you
why
can right-click,
Inquisitor
but
is
until
nice.
then, it's hit base, so when you're dodging, you're not doing damage. Also, when I'm talking about doing this standing still and getting tanky stuff, you really want a yoke amulet for
Because
the
suffering.
shock to do a lot more damage, especially this league. So you can't use the defensive amulet. You can't use Eternal Damnation. You can't really use Defiance of Destiny. You can, but you're going to be losing some damage, quite a bit of damage, honestly. So that definitely hurts. It's going to be harder to get to the high defensive level of this build as it is, Elementalist or Necromancer. I'm planning on doing some like 89 max Chaos Res, Incandescent Heart setup, at least right now. But getting to that point, it's going to be rough. But overall, I'm still going to be playing this setup because it's new to me. First day, it's pen stuff. Basically, what I want to say is, regardless of whatever DD version you're playing, you're going to be fine. They all work. It's mainly just preference, honestly. Like, unless we're talking something super troll, like Juggernaut, detonate that or something. I'm sure someone's gonna make that work. But yeah,
I think I already watched this one.
It is Detonate Dead. You will have to do Desecrate and DD, etc. So that comes with some heartache. But as we do with our collabs, we are going to start with having Excel explain.
except we can spam it. So we're spamming it over and over to create like a big chaining detonate corpses kind of effect. It is a 2-button build, so you're going to go through the map and cast Desecrate and cast Detonate Dead pretty much every pack. You do press the 2 buttons a lot, so if you're not a fan of HP button builds, I would highly suggest looking elsewhere because you're going to be pressing Desecrate a lot, you're going to be pressing Detonate Dead a lot.
Of maps, honestly, I've sometimes personally kept Armageddon around until tier 5 maps or tier 6 maps just because right-clicking and not having to use Desecrate is so nice, but if this is all you have early, you could still be mapping, and this will probably get you up to yellow maps, especially on hard works. So, Exile, I see here that there's several Spectres listed. Can you walk us through how do we use Spectres in this build?
So having Spectres is important for this build because it dilutes your pool with higher HP corpses, which makes your Detonate Dead deal more damage. So initially, we start by having one Spectre, so you put in like a level 1 raised Spectre gem, and you get a Kataba Herald from Act 10, and then all you have to do is raise it as a Spectre, and then remove the gem, and you're good. I usually press Desecrate in my head out just to make sure. And then later down the line, when you can get the uniques that allow you to raise your Spectre limit, you want to move up to 5 Spectres, so that further dilutes the corpse pool with higher HP corpses, which allow you to deal more damage.
Another thing that is important is you do need to have a level Desecrate so the corpses actually have a good level as well.
So early on, when you're moving into your early map progression, you really want to make sure you have enough energy shield to not only cast your Divine Blessing, but to be casting your, because you're spamming Desecrate and Detonate Dead, you really need a lot of ES to keep that going. I'd say you want between like 700, 800 to feel comfortable. So you really want to wear like an armor energy shield base as soon as possible, and potentially even crafting energy shield on some of your pieces, maybe your body armor or a ring or something, just to get enough energy shield for it to feel comfortable. And then eventually you can either find or buy a belt with unveiled regen energy shield when a rare unique is nearby, which helps on bosses, especially where you're really spamming.
Awesome.
Okay.
Dex matters, so it's basically just like suppression. It doesn't even, I'm just like 6, like so easy to set up. Like most cock builds are really, really hard to set up, right? But this is like, but so you want to go Inquisitor because first, you want global crit chance, right? Because DD is not a spell, or the part that, like you have to like kind of like aim it in a direction. But if you aim it in a direction, it's kind of auto aim. It's kind of crazy. I can show you. It like chases down the monster. So like if you see how like the Lancing Steel is going, it's like going everywhere, right? You see how it's going everywhere when there's no monsters around? Do you see how it's going everywhere? But if there's a monster around, let's say this guy. You can't tell. You see how the Lancing Steel, it's just all focused on that monster until it dies. It's kind of like an auto-aiming thing, so it's like actually like really, really good. You show no MTX. Look, you can see it right here, right? You see how it's focused all on that one monster, and then right after he dies, it goes everywhere. So it kind of like auto-aims for you. Obviously, it's going to be a lot better because I'm going to actually do damage. Like, do you really want to league start this, dude? I don't think anyone wants to fucking league start this, dude. It's going to one-shot stuff, right, when you have damage. Like, really? Like, do you really want to play this, dude, at league start?
What the hell?
Before you just grab the POB and close the video, let me say 2 quick things. Number 1, this build was made by Rutu. He came up with the idea and he made the endgame version of it. All I did was do the early leveling and help to improve the swap a little bit. And now I'm making the guide because I know Rutu isn't gonna make one. Number 2, This build is actually quite complicated, and unless you are 100% convinced you can pull it off by yourself, you should probably watch this video. The basic premise of this build is to turn Detonate Dead from a 2-button skill into 1 button. Since DD was one of the very few meta skills that didn't actually get nerfed this patch, the relative strength of this build compared to others went up a lot. When it comes to leveling, we just play Rolling Magma into Armageddon Brand Cremation, which has been the best leveling caster build for the last few years, and although the tree that we use doesn't have as many damage points as usual, it's still extremely smooth and easy to level. Everything you need for your swap, and then actually execute the swap to cast on Grid properly. The main goal of this video is to walk you through that process in a way that is gonna set you up for success rather than failure. You'll have to farm lab on League Start to acquire your gems, since I wouldn't expect them to be cheap due to the popularity of Chain Reaction DD, not only for this build but also for the Necro version. I recommend farming Merciless Labs for the gem, as it is just way faster on average, but if your build is somehow too big to consistently do it fast, which it shouldn't be, but I've seen some wild stuff when people level on League Start, you can do normal lab instead, but it is definitely a lot worse. The next graph adds quality to our gems. The priority here is Assassin's Mark because it allows us to generate power charges, and Lancing Steel of Spraying if you already have it because it adds extra projectiles to the skill. DD, it's a first gem into a transfigured version of itself. For Lancing Steel, it guarantees our Lancing Steel of Spraying, and for DD, it's a 50-50 chance to be freed from this never.
So you need two transfigured gems. You need the Detonate Dead of Chain Reaction and Lancing Steel of Spraying. Okay.
In prison. The list of things you need before you are allowed to swap is right here in the notes section. And I highly discourage actually swapping before you have all of them. You need both of your Transfigured Gem, Lancing Steel of Spraying, and Detonated of Chain Reaction. The Lancing Steel of Spraying and Assassin's Mark should be 20 quality. You need to level your Desecrate while you do all of this. It should be at least level 15. You absolutely need a 5-link. This build does not function on a 4-link. Don't try to swap on a 4-link. It will not work without increased crit strikes. Don't try it. I've tried it and it's just straight up not good enough. You also need a Diamond Flask with chance to gain fast charge when you deal a critical strike. You can just alter this on a Diamond Flask that you get from quests during the campaign. And lastly, you need a weapon with increased critical strike chance and increased attack speed roll on a decent sword base. You are looking for 7.5% crit or higher and 1.6 attacks per second or higher, ideally on a base that has critical strike multiplier as the implicit.
Vectors.
Another thing you absolutely need to do is put a high HP corpse in your Desecrate pool, otherwise you are just losing half your damage for no reason. To do this, go to Cathedral Rooftop and Desecrate until you spawn a corpse called Kitava Herald, and then raise it with Raise Spectre Gem. I don't think we got one here, so let's do again. And you do this until you get Kitava Herald, then you just raise it, like this. Now you can unsocket your Spectre Gem, but you should keep it for leveling for later, as we will need a level 20 later on. Why do we need it for later? Because we will be adding 4 more Spectres into our Desecrate pool by using 2 Midnight Bargains and a Void Eye Ring socketed by a level 20 Spectre Gem, and we're gonna go around the world collecting high HP Spectres. You should already have Kitava Herald. You want to go to Vasteri Desert and get Sandstorm Slave. You want to go to Lower Prison in Act 6 and get Rattling Condemned, and then you have to go to Solaris 2 in Act 3 and get Auric Colossus and Auric Champion. Those are a little different because you actually have to spawn them, you cannot desecrate them. So you go there, you spawn it, you kill it, then you raise it, and you should be fine. It's a little tedious, but it's most...
During Cry. Over Infernal Cry. Do you use the same raise Spectre Gem or the other 4?
Certainly worth it. Another thing that's very simple yet also very easy to mess up is the wrong order of your gems on your body armor. What you need to do is you need to put your Desecrate in front of your Detonated, otherwise they'll be proccing in the wrong order, and while clearing it is gonna feel very clunky. So what you do is you read the gems from top left, and you go along the links, and you make sure that Desecrate procs before Detonated. This is our skill tree when we are swapping to custom crit, around level 70 or a bit later, depending on where we get our gems. There's nothing too special about this skill tree, but I still wanna point out a few things. First, we have a bunch of strength nodes that we technically don't need, but they give us crit from Righteous Providence from Inquisitor, so they are very well worth taking. Obviously, go Eldritch Battery to solve your mana issues. You don't go MOM early because you don't have enough ES usually. Grab a small spell leech node because it is a super efficient point and you don't really have other people who will be suffering in lab on League Start trying to get this build up and going. I understand that it sucks, the prospect of sitting in Merc Lab for 2-3 hours on League Start, trying to get your gems, especially once you start getting unlucky. But all I can say is that I think this build is actually well worth it, and it is one of the best all-around League starters we have had in recent leagues. And I can't really think of anything that's even remotely close to this when it comes to comfort and actual performance.
Okay, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. These are the builds. Probably gonna start this one as my first. Go on a safer route. And then, yeah, probably gonna make a lightning arrow character later. Either stay lightning arrow or switch to the new transfigured elemental hit. But probably, I mean, if you're gonna do Legion, you're gonna Legion with Headhunter, you're gonna keep your lightning arrow character. But yeah, definitely there's gonna be a bit more builds popping off later on in the league once people figure out the different new interactions and with the new gems and stuff. But we'll see, we'll see. I think for now this is good. We'll come back tomorrow for the league launch, and we'll play. And probably we'll do some maybe some DayZ before, maybe?
You might be thinking to yourself, there's nothing special about this build. I mean, that looked okay, but not insane, right? Well, let me show you the gear I did this with. My weapon has 2 mods and a crafted mod. My shield basically only has life, nothing else that there does anything. 3 dragons, Carnage Heart with a beef allocated, a ring that has 2 resists and a life crafted, ring that has 1 resist and life, body armor that has like 2 stats and crafted evasion ES, gloves with triple res and 30 life, I guess, belt with some resist, and boots with some resist. And all this with a level 19 gem.
Okay, I think that's it. That's it for now. I think we good. We good. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you for the follows today. Hope to see you back tomorrow with the league launch. Probably gonna start like 1 hour earlier or something like that. Make sure we have everything downloaded, everything updated and stuff. And yeah, we should be good for now. Guys, stay safe, take care, and till next time. I'm out. Look on Twitter. I'm gonna tweet before I go live. Make sure to activate bell notifications, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, check Discord, whatever you like. And yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. I'm out. You guys enjoy your rest of the day, and yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. Bye bye.